Hello, everybody, and welcome to DM Writer's Room. We here at Foolhardy Press, that's our new one, working on a jingle. Pretty excited about it. It's going nowhere. We're going to be doing our DM Writer's Room. So this is where we try to demystify the DMing, GMing, and today keepering, kind of, right? We're still sort of chatting that out a little bit. The keepering process, we currently have it tentatively as the hearth keeper or the hearth tender. No, jockey music messed up the cameras. I'm gonna turn off. There we go. I fixed it.
No.
All good. Either the hearth keeper or the hearth tender. Michael didn't like hearth tender because it made him think of chicken.
Yes.
So today we are continuing our journey of working on a game, a full system based on Powered by the Apocalypse called Spirit and Stone that we've been working on. For those of you that have missed, we started by talking about prehistoric Dungeons and Dragons and what that would look like, thinking that it was kind of untrodden ground, right? You don't want to step on too many other people's things when you're making products, because A, it's not going to sell as well, and B, it's rude. Upon further investigation, we discovered that there was quite a bit of it out there, and so we wanted to give it its own slant, its own lean, and so we decided to take it out of the D&D sphere and throw it over towards Powered by the Apocalypse, which opens up a lot of really cool possibilities for us, right? We're no longer super attached to things like beholders and chromatic and metallic dragons, all of this very specific 5e stuff that we had to stick to, we no longer had to. We made a couple of cuts and we ended up where we are now. This prehistoric world, which has yet to be named, is lorded over to some extent by spirits. These spirits are, some of them great and mighty, the spirit of the ocean, the spirit of the volcano, the spirit of seasons, and sometimes a little bit more on the smaller side. We have a spirit of travel, the only one with a name. It is named Pathfinder. We have a couple of other locations that are flushed out, not too many just yet, but a couple. We know where magic in this world comes from, and we know where the sort of equivalent of arcane magic comes from. These are people who watched the casting of druids and spirits and began to steal their symbols and memorize their hand gestures and recreate them without the sort of imbuing of power that they would expect. And so they are a somewhat disliked group that lives in an underground vault beneath a volcano that's now dormant called Terra Moog, that Spencer was pretty excited about. We have the scale of our game, and we've learned very importantly for today that it is focused on a town. The characters that you play are a sort of rotating cast, trying to move through the long and expansive history of that township as it moves on to increasingly new and more interesting places, as you have to solve problems, kill monsters, and do other things to protect the place where you're from. We ended on deciding the attributes. We have Heart, our charisma equivalent, Shadow, our stealth equivalent, Sense, our sort of perception equivalent, Claw, the sort of might and brawn, and Spirit, the ability to use magic and uncanny powers. The only other major choice that we made is normally the system by which you can choose to succeed on rolls, and Powered by the Apocalypse is called Luck. We have tentatively renamed it Weird. You have points of Weird, because we were kind of engaged in that as an idea. Today, we're working on our playbooks. Now, something that we need to clarify in the early moments here is I know that the characters, the people that they are playing, are going to have playbooks. Some systems have the sort of town organization collective playbook. Did we want to try to do something like that here? And then second, do we think that will come after or before what we are doing now?
I like the idea of having the town be something that changes via the actions of the party.
Sure.
So I think giving it a playbook of some sort or separate rules that we can make up, I think is going to be a great move. But I think it can come after. I think doing the character playbooks first and then figuring out what sort of boons they get from the town will be good.
Great. Okay. I have an idea that just popped into my head while we were talking, so I'm going to say it so I don't forget it. Something that I think would be very interesting is if that playbook could gain experience and the town increases in size and therefore can imbue some abilities on the people that are from the town. Specifically, I'm thinking Thorpe to village to town to city, that kind of thing, I think could be pretty impactful. City, maybe not, but I think the idea is there. Okay, I'm going to just jot that down. So now we're going to talk about playbooks. Go ahead, Spencer.
We're coming here semi-prepared with some playbooks in mind. I have a list of several. Ethan and Michael might have a couple as well. But there are some that I didn't even write down yet that are kind of inherent to the setting. We've got the arcane magic users. We've got the spirit-blessed magic users. Those are things that I didn't necessarily write down that we can consider as being just inherent. So we wanted to throw those in. It is an option.
Absolutely. So I think that's fair.
Do either of you have playbook names and ideas prepped?
I have a few.
A little bit.
I know you have a truckload. We're probably you can have as many as you want in Powered by the Apocalypse. They normally start with, I want to say like 12. So I think that we'll be all right there. Do we just want to go around the horn going one by one? So we know that making one playbook takes a fair amount of time, right? Took us a whole episode each time we did this last. So I think maybe this episode, our primary goal is to flush out our list. What else I like about that is as Michael and I run out of ideas, hopefully while we are talking, if a new one pops into our heads, we can jot it down on the notepad in front of us, assuming we have something like that. So.
Yeah.
I can start with my first, and then Spencer, I know you have a bajillion, so you can go right after that, and then Michael, and we'll try to sort of sort them out. Now, I think a point that we don't need to do right now, but as we continue we should kind of break these up into groups. Mainly, what do we visualize as being the kind of roles in combat of these different characters? Because we have out of combat and in combat, and in Powered by the Apocalypse, those two things are very close together. They are not far apart like they are in 5e. Now, in Monster of the Week, there are combat-focused classes, mixed classes, and utility-focused classes. And we've talked about that a little bit on the channel before. We can stick with that format, but if there was anything else that occurred to us, the only other relationship I think could be really interesting is if we had arcane on one side of a spectrum and spiritual on the other, and mundane was in the middle. So our fighter is the center, our wizard is the left, and our druid is the right. I thought could be interesting.
That's cool.
Just as an alternative, no pressure. What are we thinking?
Yeah,
I like that. Idea. I think, yeah, let's list out our names and ideas, and then we'll see if they easily slot into that or not, and we can maneuver around it.
Great. My first idea is the Spirit Caller. This is somebody who is not quite a full druid or somebody who's been given great clerical, sort of cleric-adjacent gifts by a great spirit. This is somebody who has formed bonds with a number of minor spirits that they can conjure to their aid. So they very rarely are doing anything. Their moves will often be scripted as describing them conjuring help. I imagine the class as using spirit to do different things in a way that, much as one of the playbook, I can't remember which one off the top of my head. A number of the playbooks in Monster of the Week have options where it's like roll weird instead of tough, roll tough instead of sharp. I think this is a class that is trying to leverage their weird and maybe their heart. I think those are its two main stats, weird and heart, because it's this relationship it has with these spirits it is bonded with. So that's my first idea.
Very cool. Michael, go ahead.
My first idea is the speaker. It's somebody that's like charismatic, doesn't have to be a leader of a town, but they are well known, and they're more of an assist kind of utility character. They assist. They give help where it's needed. They give instructions on where to go, stuff like that.
Interesting, kind of a
cool.
helpful, well-traveled character. I'm almost getting somebody's gonna come for me on this, I don't care. I'm getting kind of a Gandalf in The Hobbit. Like, Gandalf doesn't do any magic in The Hobbit until we get to Goblin Town. I'm getting kind of a Gandalf whip from this guy, right? Somebody who's very knowledgeable, who knows the world, and who travels. Right, this is somebody from the town who maybe is kind of a traveling storyteller, because you said you want them to like know about things and know what roads to go down. They are a speaker, so maybe this is kind of a diplomatic figure of the town. They're the one that settles disputes. I think that's pretty cute, pretty cool.
I've just deleted one of mine off the list, which was the leader. So I've dropped from 8 to 7. The leader versus the speaker. I prefer the name the speaker.
I mean, if you could, if you wanted to really make a case for it, you could argue for sort of a different, less charismatic set, right? The leader could be somebody who is a little bit more sense-driven if you were really attached to the idea. But if it was very similar, we can scoot.
It's similar. So mine is going to be the innocent. I view this as probably playing as a child. So this child is helping in the defense of the town for whatever reason. I could see this one being a heart-based character. So it would be, instead of being a combatant, it's not heavy on combat, very obviously, but this is maybe one who knows their way around the town in a way that the others don't. It would be Home Alone style fighting more than anything else if they find themselves in combat. But I like the idea of there being a non-aligned character. Not like, oh, this is a magic user or a fighter. It's like, no, this is just somebody.
Yeah, I kind of like it. So it's sort of a juvenile role. I'm thinking of, you gave a great example with Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. My brain first went to the kid in The Mummy 2. He is kind of bulletproof to a truly remarkable degree. Does that kid go uninjured throughout that movie? And no one questions it, because you're like, well, of course he didn't get hurt. He's the kid. So I think that the innocent is a fantastic name. A good name is the kid. Is like the first, as far as the trope is concerned. And I think specifically prehistoric fiction often has a young character, because that's one of the big juxtapositions with our own world, is the unprotected nature of young people. So like Ice Age is all about them with the kid. Like there's a lot of those movies that center around a child in this dangerous environment and how you navigate that. I think that's really solid. I like that it's rooted in the fiction that people read about this. Also, so my next class is Sid the Sloth. No, I'm just messing with you.
The last dandelion.
Yes. I did not mean to. Ooh, I have to change that name. I have to erase this and change my name here.
It's the Bluniscent.
No, it's here we go. I might have to change this again. I'm gonna have to go with the next thing. I just realized what I wrote down is already a class for 5e. Not like a mainstream one, but as one. My next one is the Warg. This is somebody with an incredibly specific bond to an animal.
Hell yeah.
And so you kind of have two sheets a little bit. Your gear would be represented by an animal companion. And so the Warg would, I think, be a little bit into the spirit magic thing. I think some unnatural things happen. I think the Warg can do some like interactions with their animal that are a little bit magic tinged, but not so far. I think the spirit caller is the extreme version that this is a minor step towards. So that's cool. That's my next one.
My next one is the Imposter. It's a wizard that infiltrates towns of spirity magic.
Interesting.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. They're trying to discover the secrets by entering into the conclave.
Okay.
Exactly, they are. And so very much heavy on the not spirit, but the what was spirit, mundane, And what was the third?
I visualized it as arcane, spirit,
Arcane.
mundane
Thank
in
you.
the middle. So I think the innocent is going to be in the middle and down a little bit. I think the
Yeah.
innocent is truly sort of unconnected, unless Spencer,
Yeah.
you visualize a sort of supernatural tinge to their survival.
No, I think that it's only subtextually supernatural.
It has plot
Um,
armor, not magical
Yeah.
armor. Gotcha. Okay,
There
that
we
makes,
go.
That makes a lot of sense. I like it.
Imposter. I think that they delve into espionage, sword magic, very high stealth, that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
We've got a great call from the chat here from James. Shout out to James. Say hi to James, everybody. James,
Hey,
is,
James.
Welcome.
James has
James,
been up
what's
in the
good?
mix with us for a while now. James hit us with a caster on the spirit side, a glyph warden. Pre-reading civilizations may use glyphs to use, control, and manifest magic and transcribe history. So, given what we already know about glyphs and written language in this world, we have this really strong concept that when you receive the ability to do magic, you are supposed to give it back. I kind of like the glyph warden as somebody who records the histories and who maybe enforces that return. Right? There's
Sure.
something about the term warden on the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Spencer, you seem
Very
come on,
specific.
speak up. What is it?
I was looking at the chat.
Oh, okay. You seemed a little tentative. I was like, "What is it? What's the deal?"
No. I like it.
Glyph warden. Interesting. Michael, do you have any thoughts on that?
No. My only worry with that is lore wise, the druids and spirits, spirity side, it is glyph work. They've just never written it down in a sense. That's how the arcane stole it through learning the glyphs.
Yes, but that implies those glyphs are, right? So
Mhm.
I'm saying this is somebody who would keep the record of the history, not necessarily somebody who records down the glyphs. But I think you
Okay.
have to have some awareness of them to be casting, right? And the addition of warden on the end makes it sound like it is one who protects the glyphs.
That's fine then.
So I guess we could also,
You know-
if we wanted to recontextualize it as, like, the arcane side's bruiser is the glyph warden, the guardian of those glyphs which have been stolen, right? They're engraved on their gauntlets. That could be the other angle. Spencer, what were you about to go for?
It could be a Zeth Sun Valano thing for the spirit side. They are the truthless. They are a necessary and integral part of the spiritual side, passing on this information to then give it back. They need to know it all, so are essentially partaking in an anti-religious act to keep the religion and spiritualism going. So they pass it down and are taking the burden on themselves of doing this.
Interesting. So
I don't know the word.
The glyph
Anti-God
warden
thing
is kind of a what they're really like is a monk. When you think of monks in monasteries, a lot of the time the actual purpose was monks ground out constant prayers for the souls of everyone. And so the glyph warden, rather than being sort of somebody who guards the sigils, is somebody who takes on the sin of writing them down. Is that what that sounds like it's what you're saying?
I like that. No, I was thinking the opposite end of it.
Okay,
where instead of being with the arcanists who are writing it down and stealing it and they were taking on the sin, they are taking on the sin for the spiritualists by doing it and then passing it down verbally and somatically for them. So instead of on the arcanist side, it's on the spiritualist. Right.
I described myself poorly. What you have just said is exactly what I meant. So if what I
Yeah.
described didn't
There we
sound
go.
like that, I did a very bad job.
We're locked in.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Historic protector. I'm gonna write truthless question mark, and boys, we're just gonna have to do our best to have any idea what that
There
means
we
in a
go.
month.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leaves us. Where did that? So a spirit caller, speaker, innocent, warg, imposter. So we are back to Spencer.
All right. I'm going for the juicy ones here.
Great.
This is going to be similar to yours, Ethan, but I think it's going on a more mundane track.
Sure.
And it would be the guide. So this is somebody who would have that connection to nature, but instead of having it be this spirit that they can work with, anything like that, they just know the pathways, the byways. They can get through nature. They know they can survive, things like that. It's all the natural side of things. It's essentially the ranger archetype
No, I think it's
that we are
don't-
going to be moving into.
No, don't play yourself down like that. It's like the scout. It's the guide. It's fucking Aragorn. I get you. You're in. You don't got to worry about it. That's solid. Every time Spencer talks, we get the gentle pit pat of the rain on the top of the building he's in, and one of our audience members has got to be just, just going in for that. Okay, so the guide or the scout. So this is somebody with a good natural knowledge. Yeah, no, I think that is plenty different from the sort of warg character, right? The warg is basically just a dude with a dog. Like, I think they are very different. Natural knowledge. I'm definitely imagining this character having some degree of interaction with, like, poisons or something, right? This is somebody that can, sort of a proto-alchemist. That doesn't mean we can't have an alchemist over on the arcane side, but this is somebody who's probably can do herbal stuff, right? They can do healing and things like that. I think a lot of strong utility in there. A nice mundane magic, you know, make a poultice, apply a poultice. Great. Okay, wow, we are really booking it. Okie doke. So, my next pitch, I don't have a name for, because I had one, but it doesn't make any sense in setting. I was thinking that our, like, as far as you can go wizard. I kind of wanted to name... the first thought that came to my mind was the Exiled. So this is somebody who has learned... But it occurs to me, like, they wouldn't have been exiled from their own society, and so that's why I'm not sure I like the name anymore. I was imagining it as somebody who knows so much arcane magic, so straight caster, that they are not welcome most places. And that there is some physical sign that they have done this. There is some sign of the curse on them. My only issue is that calling them the Exile implies they have nowhere to go. And they do, right? They should be living in Terra Moog. Unless, if you learn too much magic at Terra Moog, they also kick you out, which I don't think that's true. Because it's such a young form, right? That would be like being a lich. It wouldn't make sense. So I'm looking for alternate pitches for the name and sort of twinges to the concept, but I liked the idea that the most casting-focused arcane person wasn't doing good. Like, they were powerful, but covered in marks that show that they do this, not welcome in some of the more spiritual groups. They wouldn't welcome them there. Michael, what's up?
Two name ideas. The Kept, because that is the most profound keeping of what's supposed to be given. So it is fully the Kept, or Arcane Scarred.
Arcane Scarred is good. The Scarred goes crazy.
I was considering the font. Font of Magic. But the Scarred is pretty sick.
So I think the first thing we need to do is decide what this character is going to be like very quickly. We have a lot of business to get done. So we're clearly painting two very different pictures of this caster, and I'm fine with either. The one is they have learned so much magic that they have become this radiant beacon of magic, right? And so they aren't welcome places. So the scars they bear aren't brands. It is a side effect of all the magic they know. And that's Camp 1. Camp 2, the scarred in these things, implies that somebody scarred them. Implies that they broke one too many laws, they practiced too much magic in public, and got grabbed and punished, and bear scars because of it. Very different. And I think that which of those two it is would also hugely change the playbook. If we were playing another game, I'd be like, it's flavor. It's not flavor in Powered by the Apocalypse if you have this like kind of hateful origin versus something that you can't hide. Go.
I have an option for the Arcanists, the arcane folk. I could absolutely see them, because there's not really a writing system in place at this point. I could see them doing... Oh, am I back? Because there's probably not a real writing system in place, I could see them doing a scarification process to write the runes down upon themselves to keep that information and that knowledge. So when they become fully scarred and they become the scarred, it's their entire body is covered in the spells that they're able to use. And that's why they're so far in, when the other ones probably aren't that deep into it. They're not fully scarred. But when you're head to toe, that's the scar.
Sorry, I just got a vision. I just took some I just got a vision of somebody kneeling in this under volcano tube city, a soft red glow from the flow that we can just see through the surface of the stone, and standing behind them, loudly chanting, is somebody with like a long sharpened piece of wood and a hammer, tapping sigils into their back while other people are singing in the space. And I think I've been convinced. I think my imagination went, I know what to do with this. Okay. So the scarred. Thank you for your assistance. That idea was having a lot of trouble finding itself fully formed in my head. So I appreciate that. Highest caster. And I'm just going to write next living spellbook. This would be borrowing a lot from D&D and Jack Vance, so it might not be worth our time, but I immediately have a temptation that the Scarred could, like, take the skin of another caster.
Oh.
It's
bind it, and then you get books.
And that's, yeah, an event. Oh, the origin of books in this world sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
Okay, so that's my next one. Michael, do you have one ready?
Cool. It's called the First Step, or First Stepper. It's your scout of a village.
I think the guide. We have the guide. Pretty close.
Fair.
A treasure. What is essential to you in there? Is there something we can turn into a playbook? Is there somewhere that can lean? Like Spencer's is a little bit more somebody who is a master of the natural area surrounding. Is there a different aspect of being a scout that draws you in, or is that what you were going for as well?
A little bit of that. It's a little bit of, it's not quite the other side of like the imposter, but somewhat close. It's mostly just looking ahead for more so like your groups that are what's the word? The people that travel all around.
Nomad.
Thank you. Your nomad groups. Making sure the next area they're going to is safe enough to actually go to.
If that's what you're going for, then unfortunately, I think the guide nails it pretty hard. Spencer, if you've got a pitch, go ahead, but I'm struggling.
I think replacing my guide idea with the nomad, I think is a stronger cue for character creation. Yeah. So going with the nomad and kind of pairing that. So this is somebody who does move around and knows the natural world through many experiences versus the guide where I was like, this is somebody who knows the local area. I like Michael's nomadic idea. So transferring that.
I like the concept that just because somebody isn't willing to settle with everybody else does not mean they are not welcome.
Mhm.
Right? The nomad
Yeah, come
still
on in.
lives here. This is one of the camps they may stop at in their travels. I think that is pretty great. I think that's pretty solid. I unfortunately, my ability to read chat is a little. I got a 2-second blimp of James saying the Far Seeker or Farseer, and I didn't. And that's
Is it
all I
fire?
saw. If there was another
Is
addendum.
it
Let me
Fire
see.
Seeker?
Couldn't
It's the
tell you.
Farseer. I think
Farseer.
James was
Farseer.
saying a potential name is the Farseer.
Oh,
Somebody
that's
who has seen far and wide.
okay. So to walk us up, so that we're gonna keep saying them all, so that we keep them in our heads here.
Yep.
Spencer, especially as you go in, we have the Spirit Caller, the Speaker, the Innocent, the Warg, the Imposter, the Glyph Warden, the Nomad, and the Scarred. And the Nomad has taken the place of the Guide. Which also, I guess, does make a lot of sense, because there's not going to be a lot of people that are like, I don't know anything about the woods. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense in kind of our prehistoric setting. So the Nomad makes a lot more, where it's like, I know what's outside the forest you all live in, and they're like, there's stuff outside the forest? What the fuck? Like, just immediately petrified. Spencer, what were you about to say?
So my next one is the Whisperer.
Okay.
So this is the Necromancer. This is somebody who would go to the big tar pit and try and do their magics that way. So it's an undead summoner of some sort. I could see it as being like a psychic. So somebody who in the village, people would come to speak to their lost loved ones.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. This is the Ghost Talker.
Yeah, I think that's solid. The only it would either factor into their abilities, but I wonder if it's worth trying to factor into the name is something to do with ash. Because we have this idea that there's this great expanse of ash and waste, which is the place of the first murder. I think maybe it just ties into their abilities. Maybe they're unnaturally pale, and on closer inspection, it is ash that they are caked with that cannot come off, a la fucking Kratos. Yeah, because I think the Whisperer makes more sense. Because calling them the Ashen implies they have sworn themselves to the god of murder and death, which is not necessarily true, right? The guy that communes with spirits does not necessarily worship the god of death and murder to do it. Okay, so the Whisperer. This is our kind of necromancer. And what was it? Did you say some divination? You said something else.
Yeah, so this would be talking to the reason they would be accepted in the village is because they would do medium tasks, talking to loved ones that have passed away, getting knowledge from those who have gone away before, the old chieftain, whatever.
I think that's solid. I like it. Okay, that's our second. So we are at... We just hit 9, so we can keep rolling. 12 would be our first stopping point. We can go as high. I think the highest I've seen is like truly including expansions is 18. But if we have any other ideas we want to get out that we're excited by, we should try. Okay.
Do you guys have any more? Because I do have, I believe, 5 more.
I got one.
Michael, you got one?
I know that we should do the farthest spirit caster, and I was about to try to come up with it improv in the moment as we were talking. You've sort of stolen my you've sort of killed that, which is all good. So my next thing was in the middle of talking, I was going to try to figure out what to call the spirit caster at the height of their power.
Nice. Michael, what's yours?
The craftsman.
I have the Weaver, which I think is going to be incredibly similar. Go ahead.
High on combat, no real magic. They are mundane. They probably give some sort of aid. They can give tools to others. They probably get some sort of additional if they're using their own weapons or own tools.
Okay.
Very nice.
The next thing I have is a half of an idea that Spencer already has down. I've written the Weaver / Craftsman. I like both. I think Craftsman sounds a little recent in comparison to some of our other names compared to the Weaver. But
The artisan, maybe?
I think artisan sounds more new than craftsman,
Yeah.
which isn't
I don't
true,
know.
but
Yeah.
feels correct. I think we've got the
Um,
concept down. We got 2 good names down. I don't super feel the need to drill down super hard into that. Michael, what were you about to say?
the only other word I can think of, it ties in some of their lore, is like the stone worker. His tool, it's Stone Age.
Then
He's
it's too delineated that way. It's too prescriptive if we say it's only stone. And that's how I felt
well,
about
that's
the
all
weaver. I
that
feel
they're
like the
really. I
weaver is
mean,
too
they
prescriptive.
have wood too.
I think we
But-
should. I think off or when we get it free breath, we should punch craftsman into thesaurus.com and find something a little more antiquated sounding. Because I agree. I think weaver's too specific. I think stoneworker's too specific, just like mason would be. Right? We didn't call the imposter the 10-year-old girl named Janice. We kept it a little loose, and I think that was the right call. Spencer, I'm sure you have a pure spirit caster. Feel free to continue with your list. I'm not going to make you come up with something twice.
Yeah, I do. It's not a strong name,
Okay.
but it's the healer. This would be somebody who's so in tune with the spiritual power of the world that they can restore life instead of a dark facsimile of it like the Whisperer could.
So
this is full utility.
If I could steal one of the other names you have pitched, I think the font, or the there's a name for the mouth of a river, the place the water sources from. That's the other thing that comes to mind. Unfortunately, the word does not. It could end up just being like something silly like tributary, but so the font slash
an estuary.
Well, it can't be that. So it's the font, probably, yeah?
Yeah.
The font or source.
The font works.
This is a very powerful spiritual caster. Somebody that has spirit to the max.
Yeah, the only other thing I think of calling is like the soul.
Sure.
Fun. The font or the soul? The soul font.
I have an idea for one that I think would be interesting, and I tend to play somebody like this in a lot of our games. I would love to have some version of the Revenant. Somebody who refuses to die. I think that is always very exciting for me as a player. I often like playing them. Don't know why. Probably says something about me. Can't figure out what it is yet. I like playing the returned, the awoken, the one that got back up kind of vibe. And I think in a strange spirit world where they don't really understand magic, it's pretty believable that somebody would just get back up. And it doesn't necessarily need to be, I have 1 year to kill my dad because he killed me. It can be a little bit more esoteric than that.
Would it be like the unbent? I don't know.
I mean, that's pretty
like
good.
That.
The unbent. I think we could go one of two directions with the name, and I'm going to write them next to each other, and I think it's going to help us a lot. I think it's either the unbent or the broken. Right? It goes one way or the other way, right? We're either describing how much they were killed, or we're describing how much they survived. And I think both will fit the same character, which is somebody who had a moment where they should have died and simply declined. Said, no thank you, I actually don't take that tender here.
I think I like the broken better because we're going to have a regular warrior type. I have the warrior written down, and that fits better for like the unbent. This is somebody who stands tall in the face of danger, right? So the broken is cool.
Okay.
Are they disfigured from this near death? Not near death, but uncome death.
Depends on how they died, for sure, Skis. I think probably they bear a sign of their death. Probably we have a tag on their playbook somewhere that says, you bear a sign of the wound that should have killed you. What is it? And you choose from a long list of options, or it's a blank box. This is where we're going to run into a really weird thing down the line, which is a lot of the playbooks for games have fill in the boxes, and I'm a little bit more of a blank with lines guy. I am sometimes frustrated by Monster of the Week's insistence that I pick one of 4 haircuts. So I think We'll have to debate that. Maybe it'll probably just always be 4 blocks and then a block with a blank line next
And
to
then
it.
a line.
Because,
Yeah,
we want to
for
give
sure.
the best of both worlds if we can. Okay, so I think we're pretty solid. Maybe one more pass. Spencer, do you have 3 or 4 things left? We've got the Herbalist from James here, which I think is really solid. Pretty close to the Nomad as we have it now. If the Nomad changes, the Herbalist's a great idea. I'm going to put it up with the Kept and the Arcane, which were pitched, sideways pitched earlier. I'll add the Herbalist. Because if the Ranger, the Nomad, turns more into a combat class, might not be a bad idea. The Revenant Ghost cheats death, favored by the Trickster. Definitely one of the origins of power for that, James. Would be the Trickster helped you escape your fate. I think that's pretty great.
I have 3 left. One of them is the Hunter, and I think that gets fit with the Nomad or the Guide or whatever we end up going with.
We don't have...
If it takes too far of a tilt. Yeah.
I think the job that the Hunter would do very well would be Sniper. Would be somebody who attacks from far.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody who attacks from far. And it feels very different from the Nomad to me. Somebody who hunts doesn't feel the same as a Wayfinder.
Yeah. And this would be good for investigating, tracking, shooting from afar. So we've got the Hunter. I'm going to list off the 3 names quick.
Great.
We've got the Hunter, and we've got the Warrior. Warrior, self-explanatory. This is the soldier, the fighter, the one who's up in the front. And then the last one, I don't have a strong idea for it yet, is the Hermit. The idea of somebody on the outskirts of the town, somebody who's nearby and does work within the town, but basically secludes themselves. I don't know exactly what it would do, but I think fits the tropes of the world well.
Instead of Hermit, maybe call it a Tribeless.
The Tribalist?
No,
The issue is the Tribalist...
not Tribalist, but Tribeless.
Oh, the Tribeless.
One without tribe.
Instead of the Nomad, the Wanderer. That's different
think-
enough from a Nomad than anything else.
I think the Hermit... I like Tribeless as a potential label for the Hermit. I like what caused you to be here. One of the options being I am tribeless, another being I was exiled, I think is solid. I like the Hermit. I like the concept that this is somebody that is on the outs, but not in the way the Nomad is, right? The Nomad is this honored friend who goes from place to place and tells you what they see. The Hermit refuses to be there. What I'm kind of getting is like the role of the Lancer in the 5-man band. I'm kind of getting the questioner. I'm getting somebody who questions what's going on. The philosopher in the woods. The seer, one that reads the bones. You know what I mean? I always imagine them in a hut outside of town burning incense and, unnatural lights and all that nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only class I think it actually does get the closest to is the Whisperer. I think that these two are actually quite similar, but not too similar for us to have both. I guess my question would be, what does the Hermit do on an adventure as you visualize them?
I think that the Hermit's primary abilities, I would label the Hermit more towards arcane than spirit. I think that this Hermit has probably held themselves up for a reason, and that reason is probably discerning some secrets of the world. And sequestering themselves to do so. I think that they probably have some spells, they have some abilities that the other ones don't have through their studies, their experiences.
Gotcha.
And what they're going to do is mostly be able to see things that others wouldn't be able to see.
You know what it's like? It's like the sage background in 5e. It's this somebody who learned a great secret of the universe and studies it at all times. I think that's pretty rock solid. All right,
Hell yeah.
burp.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, come on.
And then we've got the Hunter and the Warrior, which we've basically already described, and we can stat out afterwards.
So, let's put these boys on a line and then move on to whatever it is that we feel like we should do next. So if we have A for arcane on one side, and we have S for spiritual on the other, and then we have M for mundane in the middle, what side of the how the stream will be used to... Oh, there it is. Hey, the bot worked. Thank you, bot.
That's crazy.
It didn't work last time. It's funny. It must have just fixed itself.
So weird.
So we have the arcane, we have the spiritual, and then we have the mundane in the middle. We can start on one side and try to build to the other, or we can start in the middle and try to like increment outwards. What do we prefer between those two? Do you guys want to start with our most mundane class, the innocent, and fan out? Or do we want to go from arcane to spiritual?
Go from arcane to spiritual. Yeah. I feel like we have less in arcane than anything else, so starting there and moving back will be easy.
Great. So the Scarred is the furthest end on the spectrum that we have. They are somebody that is truly infused with the arcane. That is how they get done what they're going to get done. Going off of what we have here, our next character would be the Hermit. We actually have almost no arcane on here. We're probably going to have to revise that.
Yeah.
How magical is the Hermit? Are they halfway to being a full caster? Are they 3/4 of the way? Or are they 1 inch? I think of them as like 3/4.
I think halfway.
Oh, interesting. Michael, what were you about to say?
I could see.
I would say the imposter is more arcane than the Hermit.
Oh, certainly.
Oh,
okay, so
yeah.
our Scarred is full. Our imposter then would be our sort of 3/4. And our Hermit would be our half.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot.
And those are all of our arcane.
Certainly it is. So then we approach the mundane end of the spectrum now, right? Because the mundane, now we're mundane / arcane instead of arcane / mundane. The speaker, I'm going to just read off all of them that seem like they could apply here. The speaker, the nomad, the craftsman, the broken. And that's what I think is the most likely to be here.
I could see either the broken or the craftsman.
Because I think what the craftsman's doing is a little apocryphal, right? There's a little bit of something there. They're certainly not spiritual. So I would lean them towards the sort of artifice of arcane. I think inevitably they're going to start to wonder, can I carve a rune into this staff? Like, I think there is a heretical thought in their hearts that they will someday have to fold into. Spencer, you seem like you have an alternate concept boiling.
Yeah, their opposite is going to be the broken. They are an inch into spiritual, but are still essentially mundane. They're just crazy strong mundane, but they've been brought back by something, by some belief or power or whatever. They're here.
Okay.
They didn't carve a rune into themselves and come back.
So I've written craftsman and broken. Let me check those off the list.
And I feel like the nomad's probably closer to spirit rather than arcane.
Now that's the real question. Are they
That's
one...
like a quarter in spirit.
So are they one toe in, or is the broken barely in?
The broken, I think, is barely in, and the nomad can be deeper in.
I gotta be honest. I think the opposite.
That's fair.
Because the nomad, I don't know. Do we imagine the nomad as having spiritual powers? We certainly didn't describe it as such. I don't mind that. It's just a choice we'd have to stand out and make. Because I imagined the next step after the broken to be the warg. And the nomad certainly does not feel as spiritual as the warg does.
It's funny because I think that innately the broken is more spirit, but they're spirit touched almost. Like they don't have magic that they can use, but their background has some spirit in it. Whereas the nomad, I think, has less background in spirit, but they can use maybe a spell or two. So it's funny. It's weird.
Being veto just means I have to think less. I'm all good. So it's the
not
broken,
a veto.
And then the nomad, and then I think the warg would be my pick for next. And then
for sure.
After the warg, we would have the whisperer.
Yeah, I think that's even closer to true spirit than the warg. The warg is hyper focused on one entity spirit bond. This one is on the entirety of the afterlife.
I think we're gonna have to scoot somebody over. So right now, here's my issue. Um, Everything is real neat and tidy. We have craftsman broken, nomad hermit, imposter warg. And I think that's all great. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then we have the spirit caller and the whisperer. And then we have Fontaine's guard, who line up perfectly. So whisperer and spirit caller are kind of fighting each other a little bit. I think the warg is too close to the spirit caller, and I want to cut the spirit caller. Their abilities sound almost identical to me.
We could view the warg as sort of a Shikigami summoner. Somebody who can summon various spirits to combat instead of being one. So that way it's like you have access to one of these. And then when you level up, you have access to two of these. It's a wolf and an eagle. And then after the wolf and the eagle, you get a bear. Or whatever, you can make your selections. That'll be on the option side of the sheet.
So,
but I think that's cool.
Looking at the page in front of me, we've created a dichotomy that I want to flip. We have the broken and the craftsman. Yes. We have the nomad and the hermit. Yep. We have... I was going to say the warg and the imposter. I don't think that's true. We have the whisperer and the imposter, because they're both breaking the rules a little, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the font and the scarred. So what I actually need is the warg equivalent for the arcane side of things, which will go between the imposter and the hermit. I need somebody that is arcane that conjures allies. Or creates them, right? Or is doing something in that vein. I don't want to be too overly prescriptive, right? Because the imposter and the whisperer aren't both necromancers. So we have big caster, we have strange caster, skip one. We have the outside caster, and then we have touched by magic. So I need to know what is the profane caster on the arcane side of things, because it's the not the profane. Who is the helped, the assisted? Because the warg has this companion. What is the arcane version of somebody that is assisted through magical bond, Michael?
So it's not assisted. It's kind of the opposite of. It's very much the opposite of the warg. It's an arcanist that traps spirits. It nullifies.
Interesting. It might be too explicitly evil.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to set up arcane bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could have a bad guy. I think an evil scarred would chain spirits more so than we want a character class that is built around being a huge shithead, because it kind of it'll draw that crowd. Do you see what I mean? I'm not.
Fair enough.
It's just a little too far into the morally unusable. James has proposed.
I think Good.
James has proposed the charmer.
Yeah, there's the charm, the person that gets help from the living beings. I was thinking along the lines of Gollum. They create things out of nature and imbue them with magical energy and use them in combat. So it would be like, I'm going to use this tree, and the tree now can walk and swing and do combat.
On that.
And that's pretty profane. Pretty bad.
Okay.
Yeah. We're looking at Celebrimbor.
So it's like the corruptor.
The enchanter?
Yeah.
The carver?
The imbuer?
Imbuer, carver. I like imbuer better than carver. Imbuer feels a little too fancy. It's standing next to the scarred, the imposter, the hermit, and the craftsman. The imbued kind of is a little bit of the odd man out, because we have the broken, the nomad, the warg, the whisperer, and the font. Those go together. We have the scarred, the imposter, the hermit, and the craftsman. So I want something a little closer. I love that it is the craftsman turned up to 10. I think that's great. We have the puppeteer.
Yeah.
We're in the right zone. I'm just not.
We're almost there.
We're angling. We're twisting. I'm just trying to think of an equivalent term. It's like
the twister is unfortunate because the word twister exists.
yeah. Well, so
it's twisting nature.
Let's be super clear about how we visualize this, right? I'm cool with this being somebody that that enchants a thing and then uses the thing. We took a step into enchanting a whole tree and making uproot itself. I think that is a wander in the wrong. I think that's what the warg. I think the warg can probably connect to a tree that has ancestrally protected their home or some shit. I think that is the other side, right? I love that the arcane equivalent would be somebody carving into a staff or a blade, and that is now their instrument, and they can use that for what comes next. And only one item can be enchanted, and we can do all that stuff. So it's mainly about carving, enchanting, imbuing. I think these are the right words. I just want something a little less fancy because it doesn't sit in with the rest of these.
Whittler.
Yeah. Let's hop on. I'm gonna swing on over to Thesaurus Town. I'm gonna search imbue. Spencer, what are you gonna search?
I'm looking. I'm not finding anything cool yet.
Steep, flood, instill. This is interesting. This is tough.
Are we opposed to Carver?
Anything else coming up?
Carver sounds.
Yeah, I feel like
sounds
Carver...
like a barbarian to me. Like they'd have to be the rune carver.
When you look at it, when people are scrolling through, it'd be hard to see.
Okay, this is fine.
The
hag, the hex. We don't have to be afraid of using the same terms, guys. We're talking about magic. We're gonna say spell. We don't need to call it magic with a K. We're not YA fiction authors. Yeah, the seer, the hex, the hag. Those all feel good to me. Let me Carver. I'm gonna search Carver. Let's see if there's any interesting stuff for Carver.
There's the alterer.
The
too many ers.
The etcher.
Etcher.
The inventor.
Emblem.
Let me try infuse. Let me see what infuse gets us. Again, hey, welcome to DM Writer's Room. This is like half of what you do.
This is the hard part.
I'm so sorry, but half of what you do is name the dwarf that's in the keep and then try to figure out if he's related to that other dwarf you accidentally gave the same last name. That's what we're doing right now. That's what we're doing now. We're flipping through the magic items in D&D Beyond. There's 140 of them, and we're trying to pick one to give to our players. There's
the etcher.
The etcher. Michael and I were chatting etcher a little while ago. I don't dislike the etcher.
I like the etcher. I like it because I get a better sense for it than something like the carver necessarily. I see that and I go, oh, they're not, ripping into something. They're marking something at first glance. So I'd read a little bit deeper for that. So I like the etcher.
Marker?
The marker's actually really not...
This is mark.
You know what's funny? If marker didn't sound like Sharpie, I would love the marker.
Yeah. Let's for now go with the etcher, and we'll look deeper. I'm going to say I need a quick 5 to run to the bathroom.
Perfect timing. Yeah, take 5. I'm going to grab a drink. For those of you watching, we will be back in 5. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to DM Writer's Room. In the first half, you missed us coming up with the names and loose concepts of 15 playbooks, which we are now trying to place on a line that goes from the most arcane to the most spiritual caster, with our mundane groups in the middle. We have the big wigs of our two separate sides laid out here. We have the Scarred, the Imposter, the Etcher, the Hermit, and the Craftsman on the arcane side. And we have the Font, the Whisperer, the Warg, the Nomad, and the Broken on the spiritual side. Now that's all well and good, and I think that works really well. Almost everybody else that I am looking at will fit squarely in the middle, with a single, somewhat problematic exception. The hunter and the warrior and the hunter, the warrior, and the oh gosh, Spencer, what's the name? The innocent and the speaker kind of clearly all go in the center there. The spirit caller has been dashed, even though it was the only idea that I actually had before we got on call, which is, I mean, life happens. The glyph warden. We have a troublemaker. So I imagine the glyph warden, if anything, as the sort of inverse of the etcher, maybe too directly. Unless the etcher is the glyph warden. You know what I mean? Like, and we flip sides.
Yeah, I think we could probably flip sides with it. They're very similar. It's just a different take on it.
Can I say, for the etcher, the warden, that goes kind of crazy.
I like it because then you can have one of the abilities be ward. You are carving these things into places, and you're warding the location
Honestly,
from things.
It being the warden or the ward, the ward bearer, right? I think is pretty good. Okay.
Yeah, I like the warden. I think it's fun.
Etcher / warden, and I will make that addendum over here. Oh my gosh, what a list, guys.
Yeah.
Oof. Okay, there we go. So, in the center, our remaining people are the speaker, the innocent, the hunter, and the warrior. Who do we think is dead middle? Is it the innocent? Is the innocent a completely mundane figure?
I would argue more the warrior as being dead middle. I feel like that dude just likes to pick up a weapon.
The addition of the hunter makes me think the warrior is a little spiritual and the hunter is a little arcane. Like squid. Like one little baby step.
Yeah.
Just because the hunter is doing something more unnatural than the warrior is. What the warrior is doing is the way that lions and birds and everything hunts. What the hunter is doing is actually not the way that nature does it.
It's more cerebral.
Yeah. Are we all right with that?
That's cool.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Spencer's like, that's fine. But now...
And the innocent hasn't been skewed one way or another because they're a child. They haven't been claimed on one end of the spectrum. Or the other.
So this is a real heartbreaker. So we have a perfect number line, and now we need to put the fucking speaker somewhere.
Do we want to have the speaker and then one more on the opposite?
Oh, does the speaker go between the warrior and the broken? Is the speaker a little bit in tune?
Yeah, probably. And then what would we put as a little tiny bit in tune on arcane? Just the smallest iota of connection.
Is this our hard potion maker?
The herbalist?
Is this the herbalist?
Yeah.
That's my first instinct.
I think now that I think that makes sense. They have their book, but they've got their knowledge of which plants do what, and it's been passed down over and over and over again through generations. That is taking a page out of the Arcanist's book. Definitely.
And it's also a little thinkier.
They probably wouldn't think of it that way. Nobody thinks of it that way, but it is true.
Yeah, nobody's running the hunter out of town for doing magic, right? I think that that's pretty fair. Okay. Herbalist.
Nice.
You know James is punching the air right now. He's like, I told you the herbalist was good, you stupid bastard. Just hilarious. He said it, and we were like, well, maybe. And here we are, crawling back.
Here it is.
All right. So here is our spectrum, and these match up. These are 1 for 1. The Scarred, the Imposter, the Etcher. So the Scarred, the Imposter, the Warden, the Hermit, the Craftsman, the Herbalist, the Hunter. Innocent. Warrior, Speaker, Broken, Nomad, Warg, Whisperer, Font. I'm digging it. I think it's perfect.
Pretty slick.
I love it. How many is that? Is that 15?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 playbooks. So a lot of playbooks for a start.
Pretty good.
Let me, my notes are just sitting right over here. I can, please talk about something while I do this. I'm going to count how many playbooks there are.
Yeah, while we do this, I think that my preferred method for moving forward would be to pick the most either furthest on each end of the spectrum and the one set in the middle, or the most we think flavorful or an integral on the guide from arcane to natural and mundane, and then try and build those out a little bit. We probably won't be able to get all 3 done at this moment, but I think that would be the most useful thing to move forward, would be to be like, let's stat out, far left, far right. We're maybe not going to call it that. Far arcane, far spirit, to get a good grasp on what that looks like. Michael?
I just want to say, everyone say hello to Matthew. Thank you for the follow.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you for the follow.
Yo, shout out Matthew. Thanks for the follow.
18, including expansion classes.
Wow. All right. So we're off to a real rock solid amount.
That's Monster of the Week, which is one of the most developed.
Cool.
Yeah. So 15. That's great.
It's huge.
We stat out a few of these. We've got play testable content here.
So as far as statting out each individual one, I think we can do some cursory stuff. I don't think the best use of our time on stream will be to have the next 15 days be us really wading hip deep through these waters.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what can we flush out that you visualize important that is more than what we have for these characters now? Because we know roughly how they work. I think the best thing we could do is primary and secondary attributes. Right. What is the main thing they use?
Yeah, I think that's a good maneuver.
What's the secondary thing they use? And so you said you want to start on opposite ends and cinch inwards until the last thing we do is the innocent, right?
Yeah, I think
I was trying to understand you. Is that what you said?
Yes. No, I was saying we should pick one on the nature side, one on the spirit, or the spirit side, one on the arcane side, and then one mundane one, and be like, what do they do? And then we can flesh out from those guide markers in. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I agree, though. The thing I was going to say for not really delving too deeply would be to come up with, like, what is the iconic signature move of each of these classes? It's like, you can choose 2 other moves, but everybody, if you choose this class, has this one, is the thing that I would ask after we figure out their primary and secondary attributes.
Okay. Which is interesting because for a lot of the playbooks in these games, it's not necessarily their most important or defining trait. It's just the one they all share.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what the wargs is going to be. It's animal companion. Okay. So I think that's huge. I have them numbered in a way that will help me keep track. We are going to start with the Scarred. My pitch for the Scarred, my first thought is spirit, primary, sense, secondary.
I'm going to write down our list here because it's going to be a lot easier than me saying, what are they 17 times?
Sure. We are going to have duplicates, by the way. We have 5 things. We have 15 classes. We only have 10 combinations. Well, I guess we technically have 20 combinations, right? Because it's spirit, sense, and sense, spirit, right? We can sort of switch who's...
Yeah, isn't it?
in the sort of dominant position. So we have heart, which is charisma, shadow, which is stealth, sense, which is perception, claw, which is might, spirit, which is magic. And if you're sitting there going, why isn't it just charisma, stealth, perception, might, and magic then? Because it's evocative. What are you doing?
Yeah, we're trying to do something
here.
here.
No, yeah. Okay. So, number one up first, the Scarred. I visualize as spirit and sense as a secondary because I don't think anything else really fits. Do we have a strong feeling about that going around the table?
The only one I could consider as a secondary would be Shadow, because this is somebody who had to be brought up in the.
Alas, the imposter is right around the corner.
Tubes. Yeah, and that's why I'm going to say no. We can just move on to the imposter. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit and spirit first, sense small next to it. Great. And then I think we should take a moment to just say for the imposter, it seems fairly obvious. Spirit, shadow, small next to it.
Shadow.
Yeah.
So, what is the Scarred's big, not big capstone ability? What is the ability every Scarred shares? No matter what kind of Scarred you are playing, no matter what their origins, there is something that they all have. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't sub-options, right? Like the Beast, like your first encounter for my character in The Prince of Charming. But it is a common feature. I think, obviously, it should have something to do with the magic they've inscribed on their skin. I just don't know what that is. Do they have a signature spell? Is there a spell they can cast unfailingly? Do they have
cool.
do they have a tradition? Are some of them tattooed and some of them scarred and some of them branded, blah, blah, blah? How do we visualize that? Sorry, not how do we visualize
my
that.
first thought was, what could it be? I think my first thought was instantaneous casting. So it would imply some stuff for other arcane magic users that they would have to take time to do their spells. But the Scarred can do it instantly because it's already been burned onto their body, etched onto their body, whatever. They can just do it. But I don't know if I like that implication for the other casters. So I do like unfailing cast. I like that first pitch you had.
I think that the only problem with time is that Powered by the Apocalypse doesn't love time. Powered by the Apocalypse doesn't love turns in that way. It would be a great idea for like a Pathfinder supplement, but I think a little strange on this end. Yeah, so my thought was just you have to roll, right? You have to do 1 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 plus. And so unfailing cast for me would be when you fail to cast a spell, you can choose not to. You can get a mixed success instead. Choose one of the following consequences. And it's like a list of things that you might have to deal with if you do that. That's a little bit high concept, right? I'm not sure what those things would be. A simpler version would be the first time maybe or something like that. What are we thinking? Do we have any other thoughts?
The only other option would be there could be a list to choose from of what the spell is that you can unfailingly cast.
Oh, that's probably
and
a good
it's
idea.
like prestidigitation, firebolt, easy shit that doesn't do a lot, but you can always do it. You are guaranteed to do 1 harm if that's what you need to do in this moment. You hit naturally a success.
And I think it's like the thing on the back of their hand, right? It is the thing they see always and control always and is on the front of what they do. It is the first spell that they are marked with. Okay.
Yeah. Name it like the back of my own hands.
See, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now up next is the imposter, who is spirit dominant, shadow recessive. Did we have something with there? Do we have an ability centered on there that we like? I'm tempted to say they have some way to magically hide themselves, and that is what they all share.
I was thinking disguise.
It's a little similar
instead of like shadow.
Yeah. Sorry, we just cross-talked a little bit. We had good ideas separate. I think we got some lag. I'm just going to go through all of them as I understand them. So we want the imposter to feel different. What I was saying was they could have spells that are more about staying hidden and safe than the scarred spells, which might be more destructive. At the same time, you said some ability to disguise themselves, and then you went to say a second thing. What was the second thing you went to say?
It was just about the disguised self. I was going to say it differentiates a bit. That's all.
So I think then a good does the imposter have changeling?
Yeah.
The imposter can at will, and that's how they can sort of move from place to place.
Sure.
And that works socially and in combat if they can break away from whatever the monster is. If the monster doesn't want to be found out, they can change forms. The monster doesn't know what they are, and it'll fade away.
Great. Okay. Do you guys want to jump over to the spirit side, or do you want to keep going down like we're doing?
Oh, let's just keep going down.
Okay.
We're in the vein.
We're in the pocket, boys. Up next is the Etcher slash Warden. If the Warden is staying this sort of... If the Warden is somebody that enchants an item and then gets in the fight with it, my instinct is that they are Spirit Claw. I could see the argument for Spirit Heart, right? Because they're kind of this guardian figure, but I'm not in love with it.
I think it's either Spirit Claw or Claw Spirit. I wouldn't do anything else.
I think it's got to be Spirit Claw just because we're about to hit 3 more things.
Yeah. I'm cool with it being Spirit. Yeah.
Because the thought is they like snap something into a branch and it becomes strong, and then they wade into the fight with it, which I think makes a lot of sense. And so they would be the sort of... I also like that Claw, them being the Warden, one that like conjures these wards, and they are also the physical line of defense that casters stand behind, right? I think that works on a couple of levels. So what does the Warden get? I know that they can enchant. Do they have like an enchanted item? Or is it their ability to shift their enchantment to new items, right? So I think it's either... Or is it just ward make... Oh, it should... Oof. I got too many ideas at once there.
It's percolating.
So I think their first ability should actually be Ward Bearer or Ward Maker. And one of the options is Transmutable Ward. You can pick up an item and imbue it. Another would be warded weapon. You have a specialized weapon that you use that has been warded. And the third could be like armor of warding. You have armor that has been warded, right? You choose what your ward goes on. And one of the options can be the sort of companion tree construct character that we were kicking around.
Yeah, very cool.
Ward Carver.
Then, so that I do think that works very well for the Spirit Claw.
Great. It's percolating live. Okay, I'm trying to thinking through now. Our next up is the one that I'm the least confident in, so I'm excited to hear what everybody thinks, is the Hermit.
The Hermit. That's gonna be... I feel like Shadow is in there. This is somebody who is always lurking in the shadows, being inherently stealthy. I think is fun.
Is the Hermit
Sense
our Shadow?
is also a strong option.
Were we bet this? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Sense is also a strong option. Yeah.
I think I'm leaning Shadow Spirit because I want the Hunter to be Claw Sense so bad. I think that's really solid. Yeah.
Okay.
But my main issue right now is, what did we say the Hermit was going to do? The Hermit specializes in traps and snares. Love that.
The hermit was originally somebody who had seen something life changing, essentially, and has dedicated all of their time to doing this thing, understanding whatever it is, and has separated themselves from society after learning this truth or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay,
And
so
so they would be perceptive.
sense. Okay, so we have some choices to make here. Actually, is
What,
spirit
sense
one
spirit?
is
Yeah.
spirit one of their dominants still? Are they spirit sense or are they like sense shadow? Sorry, sense spirit or like sense shadow? Are they totally?
I think sense spirit still makes sense. They're definitely keyed in to some of the secrets of the world that would lend to arcane magic.
And then I mean their capstone has to be secret of the wind or whatever, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Unknowable, whatever, something like that.
Secret of the earth. And those line up really easy. You know the true name of a spirit. You can call on it for aid.
Mm-hmm.
You know the first word spoken by a man. You saw the site of the first murder, and it's not where people think. There's a lot of really strong, pretty bold choices there that I think would be pretty exciting. Now we get the craftsman. Oh, that craftsman.
The craftsman. The craftsman. It's not claw. I know it's not claw. It's not spirit. I don't think the craftsman. That's not its primary stat at the very
No.
least.
I was almost
Um,
thinking sense claw, but I could go sense heart.
Yeah.
Sense heart.
Sense
Was
heart
kinda
was
what I
my
was
thought.
thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, then we
Sense
are
heart it is.
agreed. What does that craftsman do? Is it craft? Name your craft. Are you
Yeah.
the weaver? The mason?
Craft. It could be something like bolster. You can give an ally something when they're hit. You can bolster them by +1 armor. And say what you put on them, what you gave them that helps them in the situation. I could see something like that.
It's a little narrow.
So it would be kind of a blades in the
like it.
dark maneuver.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
It's compared to the rest of what we've got rocking here. It's a little narrow, but I think you kind of at the end you started to lean in that direction of like what bears this symbol.
Mm-hmm.
I think a +1's a
What
little.
is it that you did?
I think a +1's a little tepid. Maybe it's like you
Mm.
can lay. Now the +1 thing feels a little too crunchy. I was gonna say you have 3+1s. You can apply them all to the same thing, or you can apply them to different things. But I feel like we're getting a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Math
has a range
Central.
of 60 feet. Like I think we're starting to wander
Yeah.
into a really odd direction there.
The person gets a +1 going forward.
Can they roll sharp to help? You can roll sharp to help out instead of
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
That's pretty.
Describe how you
That's a
help
pretty
through
good one.
some mechanical means, right? That's my first thought. That might just be a
Yeah.
move, though. Do we like that better as a move?
I like it as their given thing. I think
Yeah.
it makes sense for one of the more mundane classes to be like, no, you're just able to help these wild stallion classes by, giving them a piece of armor or cobbling their shoe properly, whatever it is. You've chosen a pretty standard option, so that works.
What I'll say is if it's a normal move, I think it's just that you can help using your sense instead of your heart. I think if it is their
Mhm.
big move they all get, I think it's you can use sense to help and they take a +1 forward instead of +1 in the moment because they still have the item.
That's cool. That's fun.
Mm.
Yeah.
+1 +/ forward. Great. Oh, so sorry. I just leaned into the mic and then had a little disfluency moment there. My bad. We are cooking. Do we have 15
Yeah, we're
minutes
getting
or
through
do
'em.
we have 1 minute?
15 minutes.
Great. 14
Mhm.
now. No, we just lost a minute.
All right, guys, that's actually going to do it now. 14
That's
minutes.
it. The herbalist.
The herbalist is more spirit in my mind. Spirit and sense? Sense and spirit? Have we done a sense spirit?
I don't know. We had the herbalist as arcane. They are at our -2 spot on the number line opposite the speaker at position number 2. My temptation
Yeah.
would be to say almost like sense. We already have sense spirit and we already have spirit sense, so I don't think we can double dip. I
You
think,
want sense heart?
yeah, they're healing, they're helping. I like the heart. I could see shadow, but we're about to hit a lot of really good shadow classes as well for sense shadow. So the real question is, what do we want the hunter to be? Right? They're sort of the opposite side of this coin. I saw them as claw shadow,
The
but nobody's got to agree with me.
Yeah, I agree. That was the exact thing I was thinking.
The only other thing I can see it being is like sense claw.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough
Yeah.
because you know what? I think that it's sense heart, and then I think the speaker is heart
Really?
sense. What do we think?
Yeah.
Because the herbalist makes things from a place of the sort of gentle kindness that we associate with heart, but they're using their brains to do it. They're not doing an inspiring speech. They're
Yeah.
finding the right potions and poultices. They're grinding them up. They're making the thing. They're not messing up the reagent balances. There's a certain degree of care and caution that I think kind of has to go in that. Okay, I'm going to mark that down, and I'm happy to revisit it as we continue. Oh, wait.
Sure.
We can't. We just did the sense heart.
Did
Craftsman.
we? Fair.
So sense shadow then?
Damn. Yeah, I think that this is a character that would benefit from being able to hide. This is not a combatant. This isn't somebody who would typically be getting up in it. So being able to hide, I think, would be good.
Sure.
And then what does the herbalist get? I'm almost getting like a poison, either poison or healing, right? Choose your
Yeah.
an ability called pick your poison.
Yeah. Pick your poultice.
Pick your poultice. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, I like that.
I know, but that's not a full idea. I threw that to you guys so that we could expand. It seems like you're of two minds here a little bit. That's fine.
So it would be pick your poultice, and that gives you heal or some sort of poisoned attack. So you can launch something, poison ivy that's been mushed up with thistle at the face of this monster, right? Or you can apply a poultice to an ally and give them and stabilize them, right? Stabilize them or heal them by 2, by 1, whatever mechanic we would like to utilize.
I think there. Choose one heal and choose one harm, and your heal options would be like blah 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 blah. And then I think a mechanic that does exist in some games, I think you probably get to pick that every morning.
Yeah.
At the beginning of each adventure,
cool.
Choose a heal and a harm, or at the beginning of each new day, choose a heal and a harm. I think is fair. Okay, up next is the hunter, which we have as Claw Shadow. Spencer's getting he's getting de-nerded. What are you getting de-loused in there? What's going on?
She's spraying bug spray on me because I have the door open.
There's pain in the mosquitoes. Did you know that?
No. The disease I'm getting in my brain is pesticide chemicals in my nose.
Wow.
Nicole.
That's so strong.
Check your email, Nicole.
Michael wanted me to tell you to check your email. But we'll continue on.
So anyways, the hunter is Claw Shadow. Their main ability has got to be like, I really want it to be eagle eye. You can roll very similar to the craftsman. To the craftsman. I kind of want them to be able to roll sharp roll sharp to kick ass or something.
Sharp to kick ass. That'd be an interesting one.
That's my first instinct, right? You can roll sharp to kick some ass, because, well, no, wait, you can roll shadow. It would have to be.
Yes. Shadow weight makes more sense.
You can roll shadow to kick ass if you are far or hidden. And we don't need to super specify what those words mean. I think they're pretty clear. If you can attack and they can't see you, you can be far or hidden. Do we like that? Do we not like that? What's the angle?
I do like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Hunt from far. Because I still think the name of our... If we're not going to use hunt instead of claw, then I at least want hunt to be the move you use when you attack. I think one of those two is pretty keen. And then we have position 0. What stats do the innocent use? Do they use heart and heart? Like, what are we...
Innocent. It's gotta be heart and something.
I almost...
Did we use Heart and Shadow?
Heart and Shadow.
No, we didn't. I think that is true. I like that.
Heart and Shadow. Again, a class that would benefit from hiding and from being very charming.
What was the... Spencer, you had a lot of ideas about this class. What ability... What of those things did you visualize as the sort of ability that surrounds the innocent?
It was difficult
protection.
because I was looking at Is
it bulletproof?
It would be the opposite of it would be the opposite of you draw all attention to yourself, like all negative damage or whatever. It's the opposite of that. You sort of repel all of the negative danger. You're never really in danger because there's other people around you that are going to take it instead. So it is basically bulletproof.
Okay,
plot armor.
Okay. Bulletproof. Whenever somebody rolls to protect you, right?
Yeah.
Bulletproof, you are essentially immune to harm. Whenever somebody rolls to protect you, you automatically get takes no harm. They get +1 experience, something like that. Just something to really encourage
that's cool.
that back and forth.
I think it's kind of fun to make it not that there's an automatic success. There's always a chance of failing. Your character can die. Instead, it is that whenever somebody rolls to protect you, they get 1 experience because people will be going out of their way to keep you safe, so they're getting that experience, and it functions in a very similar vein, even if it does on occasion fail. I think that just people get a +1 when they roll to protect you, I think is cool.
Solid. I like it. Okay. We're trucking. We got 5 minutes. If we do one every 40 seconds, we're ready.
Let's go. Let's go.
Number 1, warrior. Claw. I'm looking. I see claw heart.
Yeah.
Right? I don't see anything else great other than claw heart, except for maybe claw sense.
Claw heart. I think claw heart because you've got camaraderie, you've got esprit de corps, all that good stuff.
For number 2, we have the speaker, and we know that the speaker is heart. Heart something, right? Sense heart or heart sense?
I think it's heart sense.
It's gotta be. I'm looking at the list. And we don't have another heart sense. Game design, people. It can't all be fun.
Yeah, sorry to our viewers. We're hammering out very specific information here instead of the cool lore, so we apologize.
Warrior ability.
Is it
like your weapon?
Fear no evil? You can take 1 less harm every time you take it. Regardless, you get 1 armor essentially.
We're doing so I'm trying to pull back on it a few times. I'm going to iterate it strong here. We keep leaning into this crunchy direction. That's not how any of the moves in Powered by the Apocalypse games work. There's like
Mhm.
very specific examples where it's like you always count as having one armor, but it's usually like you receive a vision at the beginning of each adventure. You have a friend.
Mm.
Like we don't. It doesn't always need to be like you get a +1 whenever the moon is full. Like we can. If you have something that's just exciting, it's fine to attach something to it. We don't need to do that every time.
Mm.
Right? The spirit.
The easy option is go ahead.
I was just gonna say the imposter has changeling. You can change into other people. There's no stat for that. We just know what we mean.
Yeah. Hmm.
But we
My
don't
first
need to
thoughts
equip
was
it now.
well armed.
Compel duel.
It's okay. Compel duel implies magic is happening. So I bulk. I bulk.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it'd be like shield or something like that, or
Sure. So we've got shield. Spencer, what were you about to say?
Well armed. You've got weapons. You've always got weapons. You're ready to go at all times.
You said something earlier that was along the lines of like hard to kill. And I think that's interesting. Like, I don't mind it resulting in armor. I'm not saying this thing has to not have a stat-based bonus. We could do like well-armed or hard to kill. You always count as having one armor, and you always have a piece of gear, no matter the situation, right? I think that could work for
Yeah.
the warrior. I think another option could be trained. Even without armor or weapons, you do 2 harm, close, messy, and you have
Ooh.
1 armor, because no matter what, you can get in
Yeah, that's
there.
cool.
You know what I
That's
mean?
fun. I
Your
like that.
unarmed attacks do 2 harm. You blah blah blah. Encourage them to use weapons, but be like, you don't need them. That's
Sometimes.
yeah. So that's
Yeah,
my
I like
first
that.
impulse to sort of tie those ideas together. Did we have any others that we thought were better?
No, I like the idea of them. Your body's a weapon, trained, whatever. I think that works. Deadly.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely see a lot of ways that could work. Anytime you attack with a weapon, take +1 to the harm. If you attack barefisted, you do 2 harm instead of 1. This is somebody's
Mhm.
whole job is to stand in the front and get hit in the face and body. I think that's totally golden. Up next, again, we have the speaker. We have this sort of heart sense thing. I see them encouraging their allies and giving some kind of bonus. I could also hear them. I could also see them as having a more vague sort of you get a positive reaction wherever you go kind of graceful ability
Mm.
that's a little less codified.
That's pretty fun. Yeah, everyone regards you warmly. I think is very interesting. You start if we're looking at relationships on a scale of enemies to best friend, you always are like one notch over towards friend when you meet anyone. I think is very cool.
And I think we can give it a little mechanical thing, which is your first some version of like your first heart check is always free. Like you can mess up once and they
Yeah.
will assume that you have fumbled instead of insulted them. Like you sort of have that
Mhm.
option. Or it could be yeah, I think some version of that. Or, it's easy for you to bend your words and get out of the situation. If you fail a heart check, you can double down. Immediately make a second heart check as you try to explain yourself. If you fail this one, things break
Yeah.
bad. And break bad is in bold.
Yeah.
Extra check, okay. We made incredible progress. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left to get through, but it is 9:31. We are already past our window here. So, with that, I think it is time for us here at DM Writer's Room to sign off. You hopefully tuned in today, having watched our previous Spirit and Stone videos. If not, bless you for hanging out. Silver Tongue from James. Great name for that ability. I'll jot that down.
Nice.
If you did not, I'm sure today was a little confusing. Definitely go back and watch those earlier ones. If you're finding this VOD in the future and you haven't watched the others, go take a peek, because a lot of what we're doing now is taking what we've built upon and filling in the bracket that we need to progress to bigger things. And some of that means just looking into the cameras and saying, sense, heart, and writing it down without explaining ourselves. We are going to continue this, focusing more on the playbooks and then maybe dabbling into factions, probably town types. We're probably going to talk about that next as a pretty major feature. So look forward to that. You can catch 3 streams on Foolhardy Press. They are Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. The Sunday stream, Michael's stream, is Game Masters, Masters of Games, where we attempt to master various games. You may have watched us bash our heads up against Radon repeatedly for a very long time a little while ago. We are temporarily, I wanted to be permanently stopped. Michael insisted that it is more of a brief peace treaty between us and Radon. So safe to assume at some point, even if it is just in a YouTube clip that Spencer edits, we will circle back on that idiot at some point in the not too distant future. So that is 7:30s on Sundays. You can catch our gaming stream. On Mondays at 7:30, you can catch The Party Makes Things Worse. That's our actual play. Right now, Spencer is running an adventure in the Monster of the Week system called The Prince of Charming, a horrifying tale of cultish goings-on in the American South. That's been an absolute joy. Really fun to work on. You should definitely give that a listen. And then, of course, on Tuesdays at 7:30, you can check out DM Writer's Room, where we demystify the DMing and GMing. That's dungeon mastering and game mastering for if you're not playing D&D. Process, coming up with new ideas, trying to fold in the input that we get, and not being afraid to cut some of the extra bits that we come up with. That kind of always ends up being a good chunk of what we do, is going back and going, did we name it that? Why did we do that? You can also check out Foolhardy Press on YouTube and TikTok. Spencer does a boatload of work over there. We've got some really great stuff on there. Don't forget to like and subscribe, both now and when you watch those. We appreciate your views, and we appreciate the dedication there. Am I missing anything?
You can buy our D&D one-shot adventure, The Lich's Dollhouse and Drive-Thru RPG. Otherwise, that's it.
Woo! It is a lot to remember at the end of a very long day, but I think we held it together. James, you're always a pleasure to have around. Thank you so much. We will catch you all on the flip-flop. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.